South Park is still recovering from the chaos of the 6 to 7 meme, the possession of Cartman, and the revelation of Satan's unborn child. But just when it seems like the town might finally return to normal, something worse begins to spread. A new fear, a new belief, a new identity crisis. Season 27. Episode 6 doesn't just continue the story, it deepens it, twists it, and drags the town into a cultural meltdown that hits even harder. This episode is about faith, identity, influence, and the terrifying power of needing to belong. And just like before, the line between parody and reality becomes disturbingly thin. Episode 6 opens with the town pretending nothing happened. The kids are back in school, teachers are exhausted, and Principal Victoria gives yet another forced speech about moving forward as a community. She bans chanting, symbols, numerology, and anything that could be interpreted as spiritual expression. Even humming in the hallway is now considered a suspicious act. The goal is to prevent another mass panic. But the harder the adults try to enforce normal behavior, the more obvious it becomes that nobody knows what normal means anymore. The town is traumatized, confused, and on the edge of relapse. Cartman, still recovering from his possession, walks through the halls quiet for once. People stare at him like he's radioactive. Even Butters keeps a safe 5-foot distance, filming Cartman with his phone like he's a ticking time bomb. Kyle and Stan try to comfort Cartman in their own awkward way, but Cartman is different. He's paranoid, jumpy, and convinced he's still being watched, if not by demons, then by something else. He claims he can still hear faint whispers of the 6 to 7 chant, like an echo stuck inside his head. Nobody believes him, but the audience is left unsure. The question hangs, did the exorcism actually work? Meanwhile, the adults are dealing with their own fallout. The mayor is under national criticism over the satanic child panic incident, and religious news networks are still running dramatic reenactments featuring children summoning demons with cafeteria trays. Churches, influencers, politicians, and online commentators all try to rewrite what happened to fit their own agendas. To some, South Park is a warning. To others, it is a miracle site. And to a surprising number of people, it is now a pilgrimage destination. This is where the new conflict begins. Buses start showing up. Tourists, worshippers, doom believers. People who think the Antichrist is in town. People who think the next Messiah is here too. And the scariest part, nobody knows which one is correct. The school becomes surrounded by crowds waving signs, blowing shofars, preaching, protesting, filming, and live streaming. Some claim Cartman is chosen. Others claim Satan's unborn child will appear any moment. And a confusing third group believes Kyle is the Messiah because of a Reddit post analyzing his biblical hair symmetry. The episode dives deep into how meaning-starved people will cling to anything, even a meme, if it makes them feel significant. Inside the White House, the situation grows even stranger. Trump and JD Vance are now treating Satan's unborn baby like both a threat and an opportunity. Trump wants to brand the child as part of his Revelation rebranding campaign. Vance believes the baby can unite Christian nationalists. Satan, meanwhile, is just exhausted and miserable, dealing with pregnancy mood swings, morning sickness, and demonic cravings. His frustration becomes one of the episode's funniest running jokes. Every time Trump tries to use the baby for political gain, Satan reminds him that the apocalypse is not a marketing strategy. But the administration doesn't care. They have polling data. Back in South Park, things escalate when Teal returns, now claiming the previous chant phenomenon was only phase 1. He gives another eerily calm presentation explaining that possession and prophecy are no longer the issue. Influence is. He argues that identity itself has become the new holy battlefield. According to him, modern belief is no longer about faith in God, but faith in one's own personal narrative. People don't want truth. They want a story that makes them feel right. And South Park has become the perfect stage. He introduces a new concept, the chosen identity. The idea that anyone can declare themselves spiritually significant if they are loud enough, dramatic enough, and trending enough. This is where the satire deepens. The episode shifts from religious horror to cultural identity crisis. Suddenly, half the town starts declaring their own divine roles. There are self-proclaimed prophets, TikTok miracle workers, holy lifestyle coaches, and people selling personalized salvation merch. The community fractures into dozens of micro-religions, each competing for followers, clout, and attention. The children get swept into this too. Kids start choosing identity callings, like they're selecting Pokemon types. Some become angels, others demons, some prophets, some martyrs. Nobody knows what any of it means, but they all want to be special. And here, Cartman's paranoia shifts into something else: fear of being forgotten. After being possessed, he was at the center of everything. Now, as other kids claim more exciting titles, Cartman starts to feel irrelevant. And irrelevance terrifies him more than demons ever could. The section ends with a powerful and unsettling moment. Cartman stands alone in his room at night, staring into the mirror. He tries to hear the whisper again. He wants the possession back, not because he wants to be evil, but because he wants to matter. The mirror flickers. The whisper returns. And Cartman smiles, just slightly, not possessed, but willing. And that is where the tension truly begins. The next phase of the episode begins the following morning, when the crowds outside the school have doubled. Reporters are camped out on the sidewalk, amateur preachers are arguing with cosplay angels, and someone has set up a merch table selling I Survived 6 to 7 hoodies. The townspeople try to walk through all of this like it's completely normal. South Park has seen enough disasters at this point that nobody even questions why a group of shirtless men are holding cardboard swords, chanting about spiritual warfare outside the cafeteria. Life continues, but everything feels like it's about to snap. Inside the school, Mr. Mackey attempts to restore normalcy by giving a lecture called "Your Identity is Not a Divine Prophecy." McKay? He tells the students that identity crises are natural and normal, especially in childhood, and that none of them are celestial chosen beings with holy destinies. But halfway through the presentation, the classroom lights flicker. A faint hum fills the room, and a few students start whispering the numbers again. Not loud, not frenzied, just enough to cause a chill. Mackey freezes. The class stares. The humming stops. Everyone pretends it didn't happen, and the uneasiness grows. Meanwhile, Kyle has had enough. He's tired of the world spinning into madness because people can't separate memes from meaning. He organizes a meeting with Stan, Kenny, Butters, Craig, Token, and Wendy in the gym. He argues that the only way to stop the chaos is to publicly debunk Peter Teal and expose how these spiritual identities are nothing more than people clinging to something to make themselves feel important. Kyle wants to make a video explaining the psychological roots of mass belief behavior. Stan agrees, Wendy supports it, and even Butters nods, though he's secretly still filming everything just in case it becomes historically important. But Cartman refuses to join. He claims Kyle's plan is doomed because people don't want reality. They want purpose. And he says it with a conviction that feels unsettlingly sincere. Cartman has never been a character known for emotional introspection, and yet here he is, speaking with clarity about the hunger for meaning in a world that feels empty. Kyle argues that meaning doesn't have to be mystical or supernatural. It can come from community, empathy, creativity. Cartman laughs. Not cruelly, just sadly. He tells Kyle that those things only work for people who already believe they matter. And for those who don't, they will follow anything that makes them feel chosen. While this argument unfolds at the school, the chaos intensifies in town. A group calling themselves the Rewritten Lambs marches down Main Street wearing homemade robes and singing dubstep hymns. Across the street, a rival group called the Divine Uploaders live streams a sermon about how salvation can be achieved through increasing your follower count. The episode walks a line between comedy and tragedy, satirizing how belief systems today are crafted from hashtags, influencers, and merch drops rather than sacred texts. At the White House, a bizarre meeting unfolds. Trump and J.D. Vance hold a press conference announcing the formation of a new advisory board called the Holy Messaging Coalition, meant to clarify the spiritual identity of America. Satan sits in the corner, eating salted pickles dipped in frosting, looking exhausted and entirely done with the situation. Trump proposes naming the unborn baby Miracle Child of the United States. Vance counters with Divine Patriot Progeny. The absurdity is constant, but the undertone is dark. Political power is now being intertwined with prophecy. And prophecy, once spoken aloud, tends to fulfill itself. Back in South Park, the real turning point occurs when Peter Teal hosts a massive community seminar in the middle of the school auditorium. He stands on stage under a spotlight, calm and pale as always, speaking in his soft, eerie monotone. He claims that meaning is not found, it is constructed, and those who can construct meaning most convincingly become leaders of reality itself. The audience hangs on his every word. He explains that identity is now a performance, and those who perform with conviction gain influence, attention, and ultimately truth. Then he announces that he is launching something called the self-anointing ritual, a process where anyone can declare their divine purpose publicly. He encourages everyone to choose a spiritual role that fits their personality: prophet, martyr, ascended healer, saint, herald of doom, or vessel of transformation. It is spirituality turned into branding, a belief system turned into a personality quiz. Cartman watches from the crowd, slowly, expression unreadable. Kyle tries to speak up. He stands, attempting to challenge Teal's framework, saying that this entire system is just ego manipulation dressed as spirituality. But the audience doesn't want logic. They want roles. They want identity. They want to feel chosen. Kyle's objections dissolve under applause. Applause aimed at Teal, not him. Even Stan looks shaken, not because he agrees, but because he sees something in the room. The desire to believe is stronger than the desire to understand. Then it happens. The auditorium lights go out. A low vibration fills the air, the stage. Microphones crackle, and everyone hears a whisper, not chanting, not speech, just a sound. Like a breath moving through a crowd, a collective exhale from something unseen. Kids look at each other, wide-eyed. Adults freeze. Teal smiles, not surprised, but satisfied. He whispers into the mic, "Something has chosen us." The lights. Return. Cartman is gone. The crowd doesn't panic, not yet, but the uneasy. Silence says everything. The episode transitions into a new kind of tension, not mass hysteria, not possession, but anticipation. Something is coming, and the town can feel it. The search for Cartman begins quietly, not with alarms, not with police sirens, just with a slow realization spreading through the halls of the school that he is no longer there. Stan checks the cafeteria. Kyle checks the playground. Butters runs from room to room in a panic, telling everyone that Cartman has ascended to a higher plane of chosenness, which obviously does not help. The teachers try to pretend this is not a crisis, but everyone remembers what happened the last time Cartman got involved in anything spiritual. The fear isn't just that Cartman is missing. The fear is that he might now believe he has a destiny. Meanwhile, the crowds outside are beginning to grow restless. Rumors spread instantly. Some say Cartman has been taken by angels. Others say demons. And a particularly loud group claims he has merged with the unborn Antichrist baby through psychic umbilical frequency. The town has lost its grip on reality so completely that every explanation feels equally possible. People start forming search parties, though most of these search parties are actually live-streamed pilgrimages designed to gain followers rather than find anyone. South Park is no longer a town. It's a stage, and everyone is performing their belief. Kyle and Stan eventually track a clue to the old South Park Community Center, where dim candlelight flickers through the windows. They step inside cautiously. The building smells like incense, cheap cologne, and burnt microwave pizza. Inside, they find a group of students kneeling in a semicircle around Cartman. Except Cartman is not preaching. He's not yelling. He's just sitting, silent, eyes open. Expression unreadable. The students around him whisper titles like Herald of Meaning, Messenger of Identity, and Keeper of the Chosen Echo. But Cartman doesn't acknowledge them. He is still, too still. Kyle steps forward and tells Cartman this needs to stop. That Cartman is being manipulated by fear of insignificance. That this entire ritual is just another distraction from reality. But Cartman finally speaks, and his voice is different. Not possessed, not dramatic, just calm. He tells Kyle that he is not being controlled. He is choosing this because he is done being the joke. Done being the chaos everyone blames. Done being the clown of the town. He says he understands now that power doesn't come from force. It comes from belief. And if belief is the new currency of the world, then he intends to be rich. This is the moment where the episode shifts from satire to something unnervingly serious. Cartman is no longer acting out of impulse or spite. He's acting out of purpose. And Kyle realizes that this might be more dangerous than possession ever was. A possessed Cartman can be exorcised. But a Cartman with conviction? That's something much harder to stop. Then the tension escalates again. Not through Cartman, but through the town. Because the White House has just arrived in South Park, a massive motorcade rolls down Main Street. Secret Service agents scatter people. Military drones buzz overhead. News vans swarm like flies. And stepping out of an armored limousine is Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, a team of political strategists, and Satan, who is now heavily pregnant and wearing sunglasses to avoid being recognized. Not that it helps. They have come because Peter Teal has contacted them directly, claiming that the selection is about to begin. The town gathers in front of the school, confused, terrified, and mesmerized. Trump announces that the unborn Antichrist child is close to emerging, and that a corresponding divine identity must also rise on Earth to balance the spiritual equilibrium. In simplistic terms, he announces that a Messiah must appear. And the idea of a Messiah spreads faster than any meme, chant, or possession. People gasp. People cheer. People kneel. And instantly, everyone wants to be the chosen one. Crowds break into factions again, this time with even more intensity. Arguments turn into shoves, shoves into scuffles. Street prophets are chanting on rooftops. Influencers are sobbing into ring lights about receiving celestial visions. A local bakery claims that their cinnamon rolls are now sacred spirals of salvation. South Park is collapsing under the weight of its own desperate desire for meaning. But the most chilling moment comes when Satan steps forward. He is exhausted, in pain, and speaking more honestly than anyone else in the episode. He says he doesn't want to give birth to a world-ending child. He doesn't want prophecy, power, or apocalypse. He just wants choice, a say in his own fate. His voice cracks. And for the first time, the episode gives Satan something terrifying: sympathy. The crowd quiets. The moment feels raw, human, fragile. Then Peter Teal steps up and ruins it. He announces that the birth will happen tonight at South Park Elementary because, according to him, the spiritual center of humanity's identity crisis has been firmly established here. In other words, South Park is now the birthplace of the New World. The episode ends Section 3 on a shot of Cartman watching all of this from a distance, eyes reflecting the flashing lights of cameras and torches. Not afraid, not excited, just ready. Whatever is coming, Cartman is not going to run from it. He is going to walk toward it because he has chosen to matter, and something in the darkness has chosen him back. Night falls over South Park like a storm cloud holding its breath. The sky looks heavy, tinted with a strange reddish haze, as if the town itself is being held under a spotlight. Every street, every porch, every building is crowded. People have gathered not because they understand what is happening, but because they cannot bear the thought of missing the moment when reality might finally reveal meaning. The school gym is being rushed into a makeshift sanctuary. Barricades are stacked at the doors, emergency lights flicker, and the air feels electric, like something is about to split.